So it's late. I can't sleep. I was reading a few things online, trying to find some more information, more websites on this topic. Came across some pretty nasty things, right? First of all, the typical ad hominem, right? Calling us all mentally ill. That is the go-to argument to discredit the character, right, of the person speaking in order to disprove what that person is saying. Okay. Using the mental illness excuse is the literal. it is the go-to. It is the go-to excuse for pretty much everyone who wants to discredit the victims. Right. At this point, when someone calls other people crazy, I have to wonder what they did to that person to drive them crazy. Or to get them to speak out and to shout and to say something. To make it seem like they're crazy, right? In order to invalidate what they're saying. That's the point I'm at now. If someone comes up to me and says, oh yeah, this person is crazy, I'm going to ask them what they did to that person. But it gets worse. It gets worse. And I don't know if these are infiltrators or if they're other targets who are just misled, right? But we should not be making generalized statements on how victims of extreme abuse should react. Because everybody reacts differently. But there certainly are normal, natural responses to abuse, they're trauma responses, right? Unfortunately, the general population is not very educated and possibly not that bright, which is why they're so easily used against their own fellow citizens. But now I heard someone say that it's actually the people who speak out the loudest about the stalking, right? And who scream the loudest, that they're the abusers, while the victims remain quiet and pretend everything is fine. Now, I want you to think about that for a moment. Okay. Now they're saying, first of all, if you speak out about abuse that's happening to you, you're the abuser. You're the one doing it. So that makes it very difficult to speak out about what's happening. Right? Who wants to silence victims? It's the actual abusers. In this case, in our case, right, it's the gang stalkers. They want to silence the victims. So now this is going to become an excuse to silence the victims, right? By calling you the actual abuser if you speak out. Well, isn't that clever? Isn't that convenient for the actual fucking abusers? And the next thing is that when the abuse is extremely bad, when it is absolutely horrific, and the victim does break down and cry and scream and shake, and if they do it in public, well, that's a normal reaction to extreme abuse. That's also a trauma response. The fact that we're being put in a situation now where we can't even flinch no matter how bad it gets, because our negative reactions to abuse will be used to justify why we're the abuser. I mean, it's bad. It was bad enough when they just simply called victims crazy, right? Now they've got this whole thing going where the one who shouts the most and screams the most and cries the most is the actual abuser, while the person standing by calmly is the victim. In reality, now, don't get me wrong, in some cases that might happen, but in reality, in a whole lot of cases, we have the victims breaking down and crying and screaming and shouting, and the abuser standing there calmly, often smirking, as if he can't comprehend what could possibly be wrong. So they twist everything, they reverse everything, and as always, they use your normal and natural reactions to abuse to justify why you're the bad one. Either you're mentally ill, right, or you're the actual abuser. It's fucking perverse. It is sadistic. to expect people to not flinch through all of that. And like, I don't know sometimes, like, because it could be people who are not necessarily abusers. It might even be other victims who are coming to false conclusions by making generalized statements about how they think people should react, or maybe pertaining to their own lives. Or if these are actual perpetrators who are trying to silence the victims and keep them quiet, and then use their normal response to extreme horrific abuse against them. Too. And then too, you've got to understand what you're dealing with, because the perpetrators will lie and lie and lie, first and foremost to themselves, because they have to justify what they're doing to the target, right? So they will not only make up lies and excuses to justify to themselves what they're doing, but they will believe any lie and excuse that that their handlers give them to make it okay in their mind, what they're doing to the target. And if at any point they start to think that their eyes open, right, and they kind of wake up and begin to realize that maybe they're on the wrong side, maybe they are working for the bad guys, a lot of people won't stop at that point. At that point, they don't want to acknowledge even to themselves what they've done, right? And they might be afraid of the people they're working for, for the first time, once they realize they're working for the actual threat. They're not going to want to have to fight that real threat, and they're probably going to keep doing what they've been doing. But again, to do that, they need justification. So at that point, they're going to demonize the target even more. They're going to look for reasons to make the target bad, so they can justify continuing to do that to the target. At that point, they might even get worse, because they need an excuse, so they're going to find one. But even the mental illness excuse, right? Oh, the target's mentally ill, so we have to monitor the target. Well, why are they calling the target mentally ill? For claiming that they're being followed and monitored. So, I mean, consider that, right? These perpetrators, in some cases, might be monitoring the target because they think the target is a potential threat due to mental illness, because the target is paranoid and believes they're being followed. Now, these perpetrators are doing the exact thing that the target is being called mentally ill for claiming is happening. And yet the perpetrators will still deem the target mentally ill for thinking they're being followed, right? This is the insanity. These are the idiots being chosen to follow people and fuck with people, to stalk them, to surveil them, to keep tabs on them, right? They will believe the mental illness excuse even when they're doing exactly what the target is being called mentally ill for claiming is happening. They'll find some way to write it off, to justify it, to excuse it, or to say that's different. I just, and I think now about the technology that's coming out, right? Like brain-to-computer interface, and, they're talking about synchronicity and how, not only can it read minds, I mean, it's a mind-reading device, right? Your thoughts can be literally, it's thought to text, right? Well, if someone hacks your computer, now they can read your mind. They can also implant thoughts, right? And that technology has been around for a long time. Like for decades now, they've been able to like put implants in people's brain and alter their mood, right? So they used it for people with serious depression. Push a button and they get happy, right? That was on the news a long time ago. But now, they can implant thoughts too. They did a talk on, it was on like it was like a TED talk a few years ago where they talked about the synchronicity, where this is like the hive, like it's the technological hive where it can synchronize thoughts too. So I'm thinking, well, if people can't even reason honestly now, if they can't even think independently now, if they can't even control their own mind now, they're not going to be able to later when the actual literal electronic hive comes out. Right? I mean, it's going to be impossible to get through to them then if they can't even reason honestly now. You know, if everyone around them says something, says one thing, but the evidence shows otherwise, but they're still going to believe what everyone says because everyone says it, and they can't see past that. But they can't reason honestly. So what's going to happen when the actual chip comes out, right? Whatever it is, when the implant comes out. There will be no getting through to them at that point, right? I mean, if people cannot control their own mind, someone else is going to. But we know that technology has been out for a long time anyways, been tested on people for a long time. I don't know. I can't sleep, guys. just rambling tonight. I feel sick at how many layers of deception they're using, and how much they twist, and how much they project, and how they're trying to make it impossible for the actual victims to speak up. I mean, once they decide that if you speak up about abuse, you're either crazy or you're the actual abuser, well, you can't speak up then. Okay? So who wants to silence victims? The actual abusers. You know, anyone who uses that logic, I think their fucking computers should be checked. Right? Everything about their lives should fucking be checked. The FBI should be there, because they're probably involved in this fucking program. I don't fucking... I'm tired. I'm not gonna sleep tonight, for sure. Just rambling.